Welcome to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi. I'm a holistic business strategist, and I spend a lot of my time in conversation with practitioners, coaches, and healers about the behind the scenes of their businesses. What I started noticing is that some of the most honest, important conversations about building a practice were happening quietly, one-on-one, behind the scenes, still in isolation. And there's so much internalized guilt and shame when the business side of things isn't working the way we hoped, even when the work itself that we do is powerful and life-changing. This podcast series exists to bring those conversations forward. The dreams, the uncertainty, the highs and lows, the recalibration, the messy middle. My hope is that by normalizing these conversations, we can soften the stigma and feel less alone and start closing the gaps together. Today's guest is Tam Dillon. Tam is a mentor, educator, and creator of the Yogic Tarot System, guiding practitioners to integrate ancient wisdom with modern ethical practice and build sustainable professional paths rooted in depth and integrity. She is also the founder and chair of Critical Mass, a global collective restoring dignity and respect to spiritual practice while strengthening community and supporting a broader shift in consciousness. Tam, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Sophie. I'm really enthusiastic about the conversation that we're going to have today. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. Before we look ahead and dive deeper into our convo, can you start by sharing a little bit about the work that you do and what you're doing specifically right now with your clients?
Absolutely. So, as you said in my intro, I'm a mentor and I mentor practitioners specifically. As a professional practitioner myself, I've wandered the path for more than 25 years. I've fallen on my face. I've had the wins, I've had the successes, made the money, lived through the scarcity mindset. I've seen most of what you could possibly see on this path as a professional. So I help other practitioners navigate that journey, and I do that in three different ways. We work across the self-development, ethics, boundaries. We work with their craft for finding their modality, what works for you, what doesn't. And then we work across their practice pillar, so the business, the systems, how do you function in every day and make it sustainable? As you mentioned, I'm the creator of the Yogic Tarot System, which is a very deep passion project of mine that fuses the Rider-Waite tarot tradition with yogic philosophies and poses. I'm going to be teaching that system to other yoga teachers later this year, which is probably my main focus for the year, my big project. And then as founder and chair for Critical Mass, I steer the ship with 10 other committee members, facilitating the global shift in consciousness and bringing dignity and respect back to spirituality and its practices. And that second piece kind of filters into the mentoring that I do around developing ethical practitioners, giving them that foundation to really be the best practitioner that they can be while still respecting their work and their craft.
I'm so looking forward to diving into this more. But before we do that, I do want to ask you, when you look ahead to the next 6 to 12 months, what does success look like for you with your work?
I love that question. I read a really, really great book, oh gosh, maybe about 10 or 15 years ago called The Go-Giver. And before that, my definition of success was my bank account. What is my bank balance? How many clients am I seeing? How much money am I accumulating for myself? And when I read that book, it shifted my perspective entirely. And that's kind of where that scarcity mindset shifted a lot for me. And the premise of the book is that in order to be successful, you provide value. And as long as you're providing value, you will always be successful in life. So I measure my success by my client feedback, the things that my clients have to say about me when they work with me, seeing their expansions on their journey, having the wins inside their business and walking alongside their journey and bearing witness to all of that. That to me is a definition of success, not my bank balance. When we measure success from that viewpoint, the bank balance invariably aligns with the level of success that you're putting out. So yeah, for me, value, as long as I'm creating value and helping to create more sustainable and more efficient practitioners, that is my measure of success. And the next 6 months, next 12 months, the next 10 years, that will be my measure.
Would you say that the money piece is still important?
To a degree it is. I mean, but we still got to pay our bills, right? We got to, and that's where the business systems will come into that. So be budgeting. How much does your business need to make? And those are things that I stay on top of. I know how much is in my bank account. I know how much my business is generating. I know how much it still needs to generate in order for it to not go broke and I don't declare bankruptcy. So money is definitely a factor in the business component of what we do. But in measuring success, that's the equation it doesn't quite fit into.
Totally. The last time you and I talked, we talked a lot about finding this balance and this harmony between the business structures and the alignment piece, the harmony between how to have both and not overshoot in either side, where we're not spiritually bypassing the things that are necessary, like money, and like, hey, we have to make sure that something is able to scale. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, systems and structures. So I think for most practitioners, we have this aversion to when we hear the word system or structure, most of us want to die on the inside. And we're like, oh no, don't talk about that. And I think that there's that long-standing collective wound with practitioners, and the system has oppressed us and dismissed us for centuries. So we're now dismissing and oppressing the systems. We're like, bugger you, you weren't good to us, we're not going to be good to you. So that's where I feel a lot of the aversion comes from. And a lot of practitioners come to the realm of being an entrepreneur and working for themselves because they're done with the corporate environment. They're done having a boss. And the one thing with, I think, most entrepreneurs is that, they don't want to have a boss. Every business needs a boss. Like you cannot run the business without having that boss element. So we've got to build in systems and structures. And I think one of the best ways to think about your systems and structures is to ask the question, how do my current systems and structures make me feel? And if it gives you the ick, they're not the right systems and structures for you. Your systems and structures are there to keep you supported, keep you sustainable, free up your time, and allow you the time and the space to do the work that you love doing. If you're so busy focused on building your systems and structures, you're doing it wrong. You're building the wrong ones for yourself. They're supposed to give you that peace of mind, extra time, and manage the business in the background for you.
I'm curious of your take on this. I would say one of the not like hardest parts of what I do as a business strategist, but definitely something I come up against a lot with clients is the resistance to the structure, but not in a make wrongy way. It just doesn't feel aligned. So many people that are genuinely focused and devoted and dedicated to their businesses, and they are business savvy, but still are having a hard time finding something that doesn't feel gross or yucky, and it still causes them some aversion. I was that person for so long in some ways that I couldn't find to get my business to flow. And it wasn't because I just didn't want to. And it's not because I was scared of money or scared of structure. And those of you who know me, I'm a very structured person. It was just the things that didn't feel right. I couldn't get past it. If it didn't feel right on my nervous system, I couldn't force it. And then in those areas that I had that, it's like an authentic, honest aversion, they were still taking me down in my business. Of course, where I got to at a certain place is then I went on a deep dive to figure out how can I discover the business principles I need, translate it, and have it make sense for me. What would your take on that be for people that are like, oh, I'm just not bought in? And I hear that and it's so authentic and it's so honest when people say it. And I'm like, I know it. I know. I'm curious of your take on that.
I think the first question to ask is, what systems and structures have you got? And what systems and structures do you think that you're needing? And are you getting that information by looking at what everybody else is doing and being like, oh, well, this person's doing that, so obviously that's the right way to go about it. So now we're looking at comparison kind of coming into the equation, and your systems and structures need to be structured to you, who you are, the work that you do, your personality, your routine, the very essence of who you are, your authenticity. For me, my systems and structures are very practical. What is going to save me time in my day? What are the things that are repeated on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis that I can find a way to automate? Take it off my plate, find an automation, let's do that. And that works for me. For some other practitioners, the idea of automating parts of their business that terrifies them, that's handing over too much control. All right, then let's figure out a different way to build that structure in for you. So there isn't a one size fits all when it comes to systems and structures. You've got to build it to the person that you are and what it is that you're needing. They've got to be tailored to the individual. And if you're trying to put something in place, like someone says to you, you've got to have a CRM system in place so you can manage your clients. You might look at that person and be like, what the hell is a CRM? Like, I don't even know what that is. And they go off into the great interweb and try and find a CRM for themselves. But their entire practice is based on a system that doesn't even need a CRM. Maybe they just need a very simple onboarding system and a newsletter list. That it really is. It comes down to the individual, the business, and what it is that they need. So it's very individualistic.
What are some of your favorite, for you personally, systems or structures that you have in place for your workload, for your practice?
So mine are actually very, very simple and straightforward. I spent that pretty much most of 2025 refining and simplifying and streamlining my business, clearing up the clunky cutter stuff where I was like, oh, I need to have this, I need to have that. And I was like, no, I don't need those things. So my systems are incredibly simple. I've got my different touch points with my different clients, which falls into my content creation. So the videos I put out, my newsletter, my school community. So I nurture my different touch points, which brings either new client flow in for me or it keeps me in touch with current clients. And then from there, if we're moving in towards working together with mentoring, schedule that practitioner assessment call. We run through that. You say, cool, I want to move ahead. I click a button on my MailChimp and I send you through my funnel there. And that's entirely automated, or you'll get an email that'll say, here's where you sign up for your membership. And then you'll get another email that says, here's where you're going to onboard as a client. Your client information form, here's my waivers and my liabilities. So they're receiving 2 emails. And in that process, I've onboarded a whole new client. I haven't done a thing other than clicking one button in the beginning. And when I offboard clients, it's the same thing. It's hitting the tag that says this is an offboarded client, and then they run through that process. I'm not a part of that at all. If I had to sit and do that with each and every individual client manually, that would take hours out of my day. And that's hours that I could be spent working with clients or making the content or working on those touch points to nurture my clients.
What are some of the things that you scratched in 2025?
Oh, gosh. Quite a bit of my content, actually. We have that pressure to perform and we've got to put out all the content. We've got to make all the videos. My podcast was one of the things that I scratched. Every week I would sit down and be like, I've got to do my 20-minute self-development with Tam Dillon. And I love the content that I put out, but it's picking a new topic each week. It's recording, it's editing, and it was just taking too much out of me energetically. So that was one of the things that I scratched. I also had 3 different series on my YouTube that I would release a video in each month, which would then filter into my school, which I would then let my school community vote on which one they wanted to turn into a deep dive. So I now had too much workload on myself. I was giving decision fatigue to the people in my community. So I scrapped that and simplified it down to just a single series once a month that feeds into school. And since I've done that, I'm just naturally making additional content where I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this, or this is something that's really great to make a quick video about. So content was one of the big things that I scratched. Simplifying my onboarding system. So how I was bringing clients into the system, I was doing that manually. It was sending them the email, here you go, here's the link to sign up, and then not having the automated side on the end of that. So I had to look for when they had signed up to send them the next email. So that entire system was very manual. So scrapping the manual side of things and putting a simple system in place for myself. Yeah, just really, I think those are probably the big bulky things that I cleared out of my system.
When you said that, I was like, that's what I'm interested in hearing, maybe even more so about what you scratched, because I think part of what I've learned definitely is, first and foremost, sustainability is not just financially sustainable. It's energetically and physically sustainable as well. It's like, what can we sustain long term? what feels good on our bodies, on our nervous systems. This is, again, going outside of the typical one size fits all classic business advice. We have to do all these things. Like, no, it's not true, because our nervous systems, especially for those of us who are building meaningful, mission driven businesses, holistic practices, we can't ignore our nervous systems. We are the leaders. So, yes, we are service providers, but we are the leaders that need to also be leading by example, too. And so, when we become also business owners, when we start our practices, we can't scrap the fact that it is most important for us to be leading by example for how to live our lives. And I think that this is something that comes up so much, where we think that we have to keep adding on these tactics because we haven't gotten a lot of business flow. And then, oh, well, I need to add this. I need to add a podcast, or I need to do this, or I need to do this. And then all of a sudden we get ourselves in a position where we aren't in alignment anymore, and we're doing our best and we're just trying to make it all work. But then we'll find ourselves be like, wow, I need to cut off 80% of this probably. I need to trim down, simplify, because sustainability is the name of the game. And what you're talking about is so important, not only thinking about financial sustainability, but also thinking about energetic, physical, nervous system capacity sustainability. What feels really good for us in our practices? What can we hold? What can our bodies hold?
Yeah, that's a really important thing, especially for a practitioner. I mean, you're holding space for someone else. You're holding space for somebody else's nervous system. And if your nervous system is off the charts because you're like, oh, I need to go and record my podcast episode, I'm still busy seeing this client and I've got another 10 clients and I need to send up a newsletter. Your nervous system is not even there in the session with your clients. So your energetic capacity is permanently maxed. So now you can't see as many clients as you should be seeing. You can see maybe 1 or 2 clients a day. Whereas if you simplify and you put your energy in the right places, you could see 5 or 6 clients in a day. So now your financial stability goes up. So they're all tied into one another. And if your nervous system is out of whack, your physical body is going to be out of whack. You're going to be exhausted. You're not going to have the physical stamina to see your clients, work with your clients. And depending on the type of practitioner you are, I mean, if you're an energy worker, like capacity, if you're doing any kind of chiropractics or standing on your feet all day, massage therapy, physical stamina, you've got to allocate your resources to the right things. It's incredibly important.
Something else that came to my mind as you were sharing that is also the importance of us liking our business, being in harmony with it, yes, but liking it, liking the work that we're doing. And I think this is something that I notice a ton with my clients and the people that I talk to, is there can be this tension and this resentment that builds up over time, where it's like, the business is taking me down. The business is taking the joy out of the work. I'm such a strong believer in the business is the vehicle that can take us deeper into our mission and deeper into our integrity. We need a vehicle to do that. And if we can be in harmony with and like and work really well with our business and have it be something that feels really good to us, like that is the thing that actually takes us deeper. Why? Like you said, if we're too caught up in some of these other things, we're spending less time with clients. We're spending less time in the work. If we can't get our businesses to work and we end up having to do something else, we can't be in our mission. We can't be in our integrity. Curious of your thoughts on that whole phenomenon that goes on when we end up in this relationship, a kind of this toxic relationship where this resentment builds about the business, and how to overcome it or shift that relationship.
Absolutely. And to expand on your metaphor with the vehicle, the business is what drives you to your client appointments as such. And if your vehicle looks like a rusted up piece of nonsense, the wheel's a little bit flat, you should have serviced it 10 years ago, that's what your vehicle looks like, and you're driving that to your clients. You don't feel confident when you get to your clients. You don't feel that vehicle is going to get you to your clients. So you want to get yourself a vehicle that you're proud of, that you do want to show up in. And that we can only cultivate for ourselves. And that bank balance really doesn't matter because we're not buying an actual car. We're just making a metaphorical one here. What do you want your vehicle to look like? What do you want your business to look like? And what does your business need? So here we now look at accessories in the proverbial car. Do you need a front loader CD option? You want to go old school and you're cool with that? Or do you want something big and fancy? What do you actually need? Do you need the big and fancy? Do you need the bells and whistles? Or do you just need something that looks good, runs good, and doesn't need a whole lot of maintenance? But what type of vehicle do you need? So I think the metaphor you've used there is a really great analogy for that. And it'll help to shift, I think, a lot of people's perspective on how they're viewing their business. The business is this load of baggage that I've got to lug around with me that just weighs me down and takes up my time. And I've got to do my admin, I've got to do my books, and I've got to figure out what an onboarding system looks like. And then people that, like you say, they resent the vehicle that's supposed to be driving them to their clients. And that really is, your business needs to be well maintained, structured in a way that you get a comfortable ride out of your business. It's that support that we spoke about in the beginning with the systems and structures. And I'm shifting mindset around how we view business. We have a very rigid way when we look at business of corporate, and it's rigid and it's structured and I have to do it a very certain way. That's the beautiful thing about running your own business, is you really can do it the way that you need to. What is going to work for you? And if it's not, throw the car out and build yourself a new one. Build one that is going to work for you. The vehicle really is as important as the modality that you do, the work that you do with your clients.
I think that something that isn't talked about enough is being in alignment with progression. At the beginning, what matters is that you are able to get from point A to point B. With the business, simple is better. At the beginning, simple is better. And if we're using that car analogy, getting a nice car that runs well and is reliable, that you know is going to get you everywhere on time, reliable, safely, and it's easy for you to maintain. You're not in the shop every week. Then that is what's going to help you build that momentum. That is what is going to help you get that flow going. And then what can you do? You can upgrade your car, right? If you can get that car and let it get you that momentum, it's going to allow all the things to come to you. And then when it's time, you upgrade the car or you add something to it, and that's great. But I think that this is undervalued and not talked about nearly enough, how important it is to stay lean and simple at the beginning until you can get that consistent flow, and then you can upgrade. You're not stuck there for forever. You are not devaluing yourself. You're not putting yourself in a box. You aren't limiting yourself or your bigness by staying lean and simple so that you can become masterful, if you can become the go-to person in this area of expertise, and then you can grow from there. But I think it's because we aren't nailing the business part, and then we keep adding on bells and whistles because we think this new bell and whistle is going to help us get client flow. And then we end up, the visual that came to me was riding this bike with all of this stuff just added when things are hanging and dragging, and we're just adding to it and we're trying to get to our client appointment. It happens innocently. We're genuinely trying to get our businesses to grow and work, but we don't realize that adding on all this stuff can actually be weighing us down and taking us further from getting to the real goal, which is being with our clients and getting these things to flow. And so, yeah, I think that it's undervalued and not talked about enough how important it is to stay lean and stay simple, knowing that you can add all the things and you will add up all the things later, but adding too much at the beginning isn't actually a great direct route to long-term sustainability and long-term growth.
Absolutely. That lean startup. Because when you sit down on the Monday morning and you're like, okay, I'm now going to be a professional Reiki master. You've done your certifications. You want to start your business. And what all does my business need right now? What are all the other Reiki practitioners and masters doing in their business? What systems and structures have they got? What does their business look like? So we're constantly looking what everybody else is driving and what bells and whistles they have. And we're like, oh, that all-wheel drive looks like a great feature. That having the streamers and, the wells and things, if we're looking at the bike analogy, does your business really need all of that clutter? Because clutter just it wastes space. It really does. And as spiritual practitioners, and if we're rooted in the different practices that we're teaching and sharing with others, that's one of the core principles in most spiritual practices is bare minimum. You don't need to go out with absolutely everything. You don't need to have a giant mailing list. You don't have to have 10,000 followers. You don't have to have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. You don't even have to have YouTube on top of that. Do you need any of those platforms, or do you just need one? How do you want to communicate with your clients? So it's really about thinking, what platforms are you firstly comfortable in putting yourself on? For me, I love making my video content. So YouTube channel, yes, I'm going to nurture the hell out of that. And Facebook and Instagram, I've had a love-hate relationship with those two platforms for years. And it's only in shifting my relationship with them and how I'm using them now. Like, yeah, I share content on them, but I'm community building on those platforms. I'm networking on those platforms. So how are you using the platforms that you got? And do you even need them in the first place? Do you have to have a mailing list? So it really is taking a serious look at, what do you actually need? What do you need to put yourself in front of the right clientele? And what do you need in order to get there to see your clientele? And that's it. You simplify your systems down from there. That's, you got to have all the things, and you're going to go nowhere. It really is. It's unnecessary baggage.
When you think about this bigger collective problem that we have about having so many brilliant, masterful humans, practitioners, healers, coaches who are devoted to service and devoted to helping people, yet the business piece is still not clicking across the board to where we're all really in flow and in harmony and able to thrive. When you look at that bigger problem and you look at your own experience and your clients and the people that you've worked with, is there one thing that sticks out to you as being the main hurdle?
Oh, I think there's two that kind of run neck and neck with one another, and imposter syndrome and comparison feeds the imposter syndrome. So you could have 20 years of experience behind you, but if you're constantly looking at every other professional reader out there, you're comparing yourself to them. You're like, oh, this person's got 20,000 followers. This person's got 1,000 likes. I have no followers and I have maybe 2 likes. Your confidence in yourself and your confidence in your craft, you're not going to put yourself out there. And that fear, you're going to start causing blocks. That's going to stop you from attracting clients, because congruence is a thing where portraying ourselves, we know our craft, we're confident in what we do. The whole fake it till you make it mentality doesn't really work in business, because congruence is a thing, especially in the realms of spirituality and being a practitioner. The energy that you're putting out, you're going to draw that in. We talk about alignments. And if you're aligning with, I suck at this, I'm awful at this, the person next to me is a whole lot better, they have more experience, that comparison mindset, you're blocking yourself from your clients. You're shifting yourself way out of alignment, and you've got to shift yourself back towards yourself. What do you have to offer your clients? What makes you unique? What makes you different to everyone else? We cultivate our medicine individually. One practitioner's medicine is not the same as another's. I've read tarot professionally for many years, and I'm friends with a number of other readers, and we're all wildly different. And I refer out to readings. I'm like, I can't take you on for a reading right now, but I've got 5 other practitioners that I will happily refer you to, or they're coming to me with something that I'm just not skilled at. Let me refer out. Collaboration inside the practitioner community is vitally important. Just because you're referring a client out doesn't mean you'll never see them again. And if we're going to cling to our clients, where our hands are full, we're not going to get any more clients in, because you're too busy clinging to what we've got. So yeah, I think I would say imposter syndrome, which feeds off of that comparison mindset. I think comparison is probably the biggest culprit there.
Yeah. When we are all thriving together in harmony and networks, when we can really realize that there isn't real competition. And I was just saying this with someone else. if someone else out there does what you do, that's actually reaffirmation and validation for your business idea, your business hypothesis, and your business model. Because someone else is also seeing, hey, there's this problem and there's a market and there's people that need this. So, like you said, it's not a scarcity thing. We don't have to worry about that. When we understand the fundamental principles of business building, I think this is one of the things that people miss when you understand actually how a business model grows. You don't need a vast amount of followers and all of these numbers. You actually don't. You just need a really solid business model that works. And especially at the beginning, it needs to be simple because you could have a thriving practice with not a ton of volume at the beginning. And I think that this gets skewed sometimes. And I think there's also, in my experience, a little bit of a collapse in this age of social media. We have a comparison, I think, often to social media influencers. And I think what people don't always realize is that is a vastly different business model than what we do. So those people do need a huge amount of followers because they get paid from follower number, from follower count, from engagements, from clicks. They need these types of metrics to show the companies that are giving them brand deals or brand endorsements. For those of us who are running holistic practices and businesses, we are running a very different business model. So I think that's something that I've seen a lot coming up too, is also comparison to the wrong things and realizing what is your business model? How does it grow? Being aware of what are the actual numbers that you need. I just ran this for 2026, looking at my simple offer stack. I have 2 paid offers. So simple, super simple. I can simply run that business model, especially now with AI, I can run that business model and I'll ask, how many clients is that? So I can actually look, and it's not a ton. I don't need to feel this pressure of, gosh, if I don't get 5,000 clients, no, it's so much more manageable than that. So I think it's having an understanding of how to get really anchored in understanding how a business model can grow so that you can actually see that it's probably not as intimidating as you think it is. And then making sure that we're definitely not comparing to something that isn't the right business model for you.
You raised a really great point there, especially in the realms of social media. You have got a lot of readers that their business model is social media. They are an influencer. So they do need those metrics. They need the followers, need the clicks, because that is predominantly how they earn a lot of their living. And it's one of their funnels of how they find new clients. So unless your business model is being an influencer within the practitioner space, that social media is not a prime piece to your business and how it runs. Your numbers that you need to be looking at will be different, and look at the data in your business and know, what data do I need to look at in my business? For me, a lot of my engagement is through my newsletter. So are they reading my newsletter? If not, what do I need to change in my newsletter? And what is my open rate? How often do they open that newsletter? Because that's one of my main funnels for bringing in new clients. My Facebook isn't. And when we work as practitioners, a lot of the clients that we get, they're not wanting to engage with content because for a lot of it, they're dealing with deep vulnerabilities. They're dealing with a lot of really personal stuff, and they don't want to air that in someone's comments and be like, oh, my life is falling apart. No, they're going to either send you a DM or send you an email or come in through your contact form on your website. So having efficient communication channels that you can track so that when clients are reaching out to you, potential clients are coming to you, you can bring them in the right way. But don't get caught up in the social media stuff here. It also disrupts your chemistry, your dopamine levels. Every like is another dopamine hit, and you don't get the like, you don't get the dopamine, and then you feel depressed and unhappy because your body's like, where is my dopamine? So you land up with dopamine crashes. So we've got to understand that component to social media. So we can't base our success of our business, the success of who we are, and our entire formula around what is going on in my social platforms. What is coming from my social platforms, and do I even need to get something from my social platforms? Like you say, your business is invariably cultivated outside of those systems. That's where you've got to focus.
Absolutely. Most of the people listening to this probably don't even need Instagram to get their practices going. I know I don't. That's not where I create community. That's not where I network. That's not where I cultivate my community. And I think it's one of those myths is that we have to have lots of followers and all this really amazing content and we'll overshoot content creation because we think we need to get this trendy piece of follow the trends and make sure that we're using the right audios and using the trending audios and all this. And it's like a distractor. It can be a huge distractor from what actually is going to help us cultivate our communities and find our clients and find our people.
Absolutely. I mean, you have the song playing in the background, you've got the lip sync trend. And I watch practitioners do the trend and I'm like, I feel icky for you. Like you can see this is not what they want to be doing, but they think that it's what they need to be doing to get the numbers and get the clients. If you're a Reiki master and you're up there on Instagram lip syncing to whatever the latest trend song is, you're not being in, firstly, your authenticity as a practitioner, and you're not embodying who you are as a practitioner. If you want to put yourself on the platform and share some content, share something of value, educate on what is Reiki. If you're a master, and that means that you're allowed to educate others on that craft. Share insights into Reiki. What is Reiki not? How does the practice work? What can you expect? So you start to prime your clients in a different way. Lip syncing the latest song is not going to get you there. Having the latest shiny, sparkly cover on your Instagram photos is not going to prime your clients for you. So you've got to pop up in the right places and in the right ways, not what is the next trend and is that going to work for me?
Absolutely. Before we end our conversation today, I want to end with asking this question. What is the cost if we collectively and individually can't find the right flow for our businesses so that we can build sustainable businesses that can support us financially and energetically and physically long term?
On the bigger global scale, we as practitioners are put here with purpose. You know, the world is not how it should be. Things go on in the world that shouldn't be going on. And as a practitioner, or if you want to use the more apt term, medicine person, if you look in ancient times, we would have been the shamans in the village. The village is in disarray. The village is going to come to us to fix the problems. And if we are not sustainable and we're not sustaining our energy, our finances, our physical aspects, we can't sustain the village. We're global and we're needing to sustain a global village that is in disarray right now, that desperately needs a whole lot of different types of medicine. So the cost is a big one. The cost is a very big one because it sits on that global scale of we can't show up. We can't show up to do the work that we are put here to do. And that cost then filters down through the people that should be working with us. And it filters down to us as practitioners to not being financially sustainable, burnout, overwhelm, imposter syndrome, and just feeling really unhappy with, have I made the right choice? Am I doing the right thing? That is the cost.
And what about for practitioners? What do we lose if we can't find a way to get our businesses to work?
Loss of purpose. And for a practitioner, that's such a high cost to pay. I mean, I've been there in the early stages of building my different practices, coming from scarcity mindset, not having a financially stable business, not having good systems and structures, and it put me flat where it's the world doesn't want me and the world doesn't need me. So what the whole purpose am I serving here? What is the point of my existence? So for the practitioner, a loss of identity, I think, could be one of the really big costs that come into that, feeling that you're losing that sense of purpose. So having a business that will support you and the practitioner that you need to be and how you need to show up in the world will ensure that you're not paying that price. You're not paying the price of losing the identity of who you are and how you're supposed to be showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Tam, thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. And for anyone that's listening to this, especially this last bit, if that resonated with you, you are meant for this work. Your people need you, the world needs you. You are meant to figure this out and keep going. So please reach out. I want to hear from you and I want to connect. And if you want to reach Tam, you can reach her directly. All of her personal links and the links for Critical Mass are in the show notes. Thank you again, Tam, and to everyone else. Thank you for listening. And we will see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.